Mike Johnson.
Well, good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year, and welcome back to the second session of the 119th Congress. We woke up yesterday, as it's been mentioned this morning, to very tragic news. Our dear friend and colleague, Doug LaMalfa, passed away unexpectedly at the age of 65. We were on the way into our gathering, our retreat that we had planned for policy, planning, strategy purposes. And I quite literally found out about it on the way in, and it really shook us. Doug was a great man. He really was truly a great man. He's a lifelong resident of Northern California and deeply loved the people he represented. He was a fierce fighter, as you've heard, for his state's its vast natural resources and its beauty, and the people he represented. And there are stories coming out from his constituents about how dedicated he was to the people he served, and how in that vast area of Northern California that he covered, he would drive hundreds of miles to go meet with just a handful of constituents, and people would ask him about the wisdom of being on the road so much. And he said, I represent them just as much as I do the people in the big city, and they deserve to have their rep. And we just love that spirit about him. I was on the phone yesterday with his beloved wife Jill, who's now a widow, and they had 4 children, as was mentioned. And Jill is in as good a spirits as you could imagine, having just had this tragic loss. And she was with him, right before he passed. And she has great comfort, though, in knowing the blessed assurance, as we say in the Christian church, that she knows where he is, and we're comforted by her comfort in that. We're praying for them, and we're going to miss him dearly. I told her that Doug was, he's one of the most respected people in this institution, not just because of his selfless service and what he brought to it, but the way that he dealt with others and dealt with all of us. And I told her just a brief reflection that came to mind. I was on the phone with her yesterday. A few years ago, I was the vice chairman of the House Republican Conference, and one of the jobs of the vice chairman is to amplify the message on the floor. And so we try to fill the floor time, and I would sponsor these special order hours, and I would try to recruit members to come, sometimes late at night, and use that time effectively and advance our message. And Doug LaMalfa was the most faithful member always, and was to the day of his death. Blake Moore is now the vice chair and told the same story this morning, but I told his wife Jill last night, I said, I remember this one particular night, I think session had been canceled for the following day, and everybody jumped on airplanes and went home, and everybody canceled their RSVP for the floor, and Doug showed up. He showed up. He always did. And he and I think, were the only two that spoke that night and tried to fill the hour. And we were done. I walked off the floor, and it's like a ghost town there late at night like that. And I looked up at the big guy and put my arm on his shoulder. I said, Doug, thanks, man, but why'd you do this? You didn't have to do it. And he looked at me so serious and put his big hand on my chest. And he said, because I believe in this country, I believe in our cause, and I believe in you. And he said, we have to fill this time to tell the American people what we're doing. And I love that commitment about him. And we all did. Tom McClintock is a colleague of his from California, and they've served together for a long time. And Tom told me yesterday, I don't think he'd mind me repeating this, but he said, I think Doug LaMalfa was the kindest man I ever knew. And he said, y'all know McClintock, he's real serious. He said, I'm not saying one of the kindest. I'm saying the kindest man I ever knew. That's a high praise, so we'll miss him. In addition to this beginning the second session of the 119th Congress, it's also, as you know, January 1st marked the beginning of our 250th year, the semi-quincentennial, or as we like to call it, the supercentennial. And it is going to be a big year for America, and we're excited about that. The America 250 Committee kicked off with an epic firework display on the National Mall a couple nights ago to commemorate the 250 years of American excellence. All 50 states, of course, will follow with their own events around the country this year, and of course, it will all culminate in the nation's birthday on July 4th. We have a lot to celebrate. We're still an experiment in self-governance. There is no guarantee of how long this grand experiment will last, but we are very bullish on America. And we talked about it this morning with all the House Republicans gathered. With this while we're mourning Doug's death, we also have this anticipation and excitement about what's ahead of us, and we understand the magnitude of the history that's upon us here, and the responsibility that everybody in this building has to continue this great republic, and we're going to keep it. We began our fateful year yesterday, as I mentioned, with we called it the Agenda 250 Policy Forum. It was very efficacious, very productive. Nearly every member of the conference attended. Very, very beneficial time that we had together, and the team behind me is ready to hit the ground running to continue delivering on our mandate, and all of our members are committed to that. There's a great sense of unity in the House Republican Conference. I think I can say unlike I've ever seen before. Resolve, locked arm in arm, understanding what's ahead of us, what we need to continue to accomplish, and we're bullish about doing that. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said a lot over the holiday about what we're to anticipate in the new year. He's echoing some of the things that we have been saying and feeling, what our constituents are already beginning to feel. His quote, though, in one of these interviews, he said, 2025 merely set the table. The feast and the banquet will be in 2026. It's going to be a blockbuster year. And I think he's exactly right. Our working families tax cut, the big beautiful bill, those provisions will hit American households and wallets, and you're going to see all boats begin to rise. And while Democrats continue to wither, Republicans will continue to demonstrate that we are the only team capable of restoring American greatness. We don't just talk about it, we do it. And it's not, it's our legislation, and if it was not for these bills, American families, let's not forget, would have experienced the largest, most crushing tax increase in the history of the country in 2026. All those Trump-era tax cuts would have expired, and we'd have had $5 trillion of taxes just descend upon that weight on all families in this country. We stopped that, and we turned it back the other direction. Thanks to the working families tax cuts, that will be avoided completely. All American families are going to receive the largest tax refund they ever have, and that all begins very soon here. Every Democrat, remember this too, voted for record tax increases, while every Republican voted for record tax cuts and refunds to the people. And we hope everybody remembers that simple fact the next time the Democrats start talking about trying to make life more affordable and all this. There's only one party actually doing that. It's the Republican Party. I want to make one more point about our meeting yesterday. Both House Republicans and House Democrats, as you might have noted, held closed-door conference-wide meetings this week. House Republicans discussed how we can continue to drive down costs for working families, make our streets and neighborhoods safe again, and restore American dominance on all fronts. And meanwhile, by contrast, what were the House Democrats doing? Well, they held an emergency meeting to determine how to think about the successful ousting of an illegitimate narco-terrorist dictator who killed dissidents, poisoned Americans, and plunged 90% of his country into abject poverty. Nicolas Maduro, who the Biden administration placed a $25 million bounty on, is no longer terrorizing the people of Venezuela anymore. I'm so grateful for Congressman Jimenez, who came in to share his perspective as a South Floridian and Miami person, resident. They understand this as acutely as anybody. Because the action was taken by President Trump, Democrats are apoplectic. They claim they didn't like Maduro either, but because President Trump took action, as was noted earlier, they're now critical of it. They're going to cut off their own nose to spite their face. This is the modern Democrat Party. Instead of a caucus-wide therapy session, how about Democrats acknowledge that it's a fundamentally good thing for freedom-loving people around the world that Maduro is gone? And I want to reiterate what I said following our Gang of Eight briefing yesterday, which was the 20th such briefing by the Trump administration to Congress regarding Venezuela. And there's more scheduled this week, as you know, in about an hour or so, to 45 minutes. All the members of Congress are going to meet in the CVC auditorium, and all the administration officials are going to brief them on this issue. The U.S. military operation in Venezuela was decisive and justified. Nicolas Maduro was responsible for the deaths of Americans after years of trafficking illegal drugs and violent cartel members into this country, and this is undisputed, and everybody knows it. These are crimes for which he's been properly indicted in a U.S. court, and an arrest warrant was duly issued, and now he has learned what accountability looks like under President Trump. The U.S. is no longer going to allow criminal regimes to profit from wreaking havoc and destruction on our country. That's what the American people voted for. They wanted to return to the rule of law, insanity at the border, and they wanted this kind of nonsense and dangerous activity to stop. Republicans are putting Americans first and succeeding where others have failed. The operation demonstrated the unmatched, by the way, precision, effectiveness, professionalism, and capacity of the U.S. military. There's no fighting force on the planet capable of doing what we can do. And you should sleep well at night knowing that you live under the blanket of that protection. Our brave military was in and out of Venezuela in 2.5 hours, and there wasn't a single American casualty. It's really something that everybody should respect and applaud. And because I'm sure you'll have questions, let me be clear. The Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war. There's no dispute about that, of course. But we are not in a war in Venezuela. The Constitution also vests the president with the power as commander-in-chief that he can use to deploy military forces to address threats to the U.S. and enforce our laws. And that's what happened here. It's exactly what happened here. The